So today is a really important time for me personally and hopefully for the company, but this is the first time I've told this story for 10 years and I'll explain again. I'm not advanced. Yep, who cares? Right? The company Acap Resources has two significant projects. The one on the right is the Letlhakane. It's hard to say, and I messed up when I named it, but it's a uranium deposit in Botswana, and that's going to be the focus of today's presentation. And the other one is called the Wilkoni Nickel Cobalt Project, and that's important because nickel and cobalt are really crucial elements in the battery story. And we all know how important the battery story is becoming, but I'm really not going to talk about that today because this is my baby, okay? In 2004, I was working and exploring for gold in Botswana, for gallery gold. And a bunch of guys out of Australia, out of Melbourne, entrepreneurs, had pegged some ground in Botswana, and we were actually in JV with them for gold. And they came over to Botswana. Warwick Grigor was in that group, Marcus Freeman, who's now the chairman or CEO of Canaccord, and they asked me to explain their gold deposits to them because we were operating their gold projects. And we spent a couple of days looking at their gold projects, and they said, we're going to IPO this, we'd like you to be the MD. And I was like, no chance. I'm a serious technical guy and I don't want to run a company. And over the next few days, they said, come and look at our nickel projects. And I went down and looked at their nickel projects. And right at the end of that day in Botswana, they said, we've got this ground out to the west where in the 1950s, some uranium was reported. And they took me out there, and at the end of the day, and I'd worked at Paladin, and I was really aware, because if you're at Paladin, you're listening to John Borshoff, right? And John Borshoff is the greatest prophet of the uranium world. And he browbeats you to death, right? And so I was really aware of the uranium's place in the low CO2 power generation thing. And so I saw some uranium at the surface, and I didn't think that much about it. But over the next couple of weeks, I was intrigued by this opportunity, and I drove out to this site, which is just in the Kalahari Desert. And on the way there, I was in my Land Cruiser. I got two punctures, and I couldn't get back, and I was standing on the roof of my car trying to get a cell signal, and I managed to call my chief fieldy and said, come and rescue me. You know, Francistown is about an hour's drive away. So he had to get some tyres and drive out. And I had all this time. And I had a Geiger counter, or a scintillometer by then. And I started walking around the car, and it was going off. Going off. I was like in fear of my genital health, I tell you. I was thinking, geez, I need some lead undies. And I went back every Sunday for a couple of weeks. And this thing, I could map it out. You could walk it. And the scintillometer's screaming. And I rang them up and I said, if you guys will still consider me to be the CEO of this company, I'll come. But forget the gold, forget the nickel. I think we can make a uranium discovery. And that's what happened. Sorry, a couple other things. In 2011, Fukushima happened. Uranium price collapsed. And I bailed. I could see that uranium was in the toilet for a while. And so I left and went back to the gold industry, and I've had like any gold explorer, I've had some wins, I've had some losses along the way. It's been a great journey. Brazil, Portugal, the Czech Republic, South Africa. You know, about 2 months ago, Acap approached me and said, can you come back and take this deposit on again? So I've just rejoined Acap. I was the MD here from 2006, I think, to 2012, and I've come back. And I've got to say, this is my baby. I'm a bit emotional standing up here in front of you. I won't cry, but I am a little emotional. So this is the deposit that we found in those 7 years of my being the MD. It's one of the world's largest uranium deposits. It's not my discovery, it's always a team, all right? I built a great team around me, and one of the greatest joys of my life recently was to go back to Botswana and see some of those people and say, and I felt like Robert Plant, I wish, I'm getting the band back together, right? Wish Led Zeppelin would get back together, but anyway. So we'll be rebuilding that team because Acap's done it tough over the last few years. The uranium price has been very depressed. I'll talk about that more, but this is one of the world's great deposits. It's in the world's top 10 largest deposits. And yes, you can look at it at various cutoffs. That's at the 100 ppm cutoff. At higher cutoffs, it's smaller, but it's obviously higher grade. It has a lot of optionality. So while I've been gone, the exploration ground was coming due, it was all expiring. What they did was that they completed a feasibility study, they completed an EIA and community and investor relations, or not so much investor, but, community awareness. Botswana is one of the world's great mining countries, okay? Botswana's wealth is predicated on diamond mining. It's one of the highest GDP countries in Africa, and it's not rich by our standards, but by African standards, it's really good. Free antiretroviral drugs for HIV, lots of good health, good social network, and it's a great and wonderful place to live and work. My kids went to school there, and I lived there for many years, and I'm delighted to be back. So what happened was the exploration ground was falling over. They completed a feasibility study, and this is the feasibility study, but it's not that relevant because it was done at a really reduced uranium price. The company didn't have much money, but they had to complete a feasibility study, and they've been granted the mining license, and that's crucial, right? Because that gives us security of tenure, which is one of the most important things in any mining operation, particularly in Africa. So you've got security of tenure. It's a 30-year mine life now, a 30-year license life, okay? And you can see these things. And look, everything's going to change. Prices have gone up. Uranium price has gone up. Everything's going to change. We're going to look to redo the feasibility study that underpins these numbers. But what are we going to do differently? And I think that's the key here, right? In 2006 was a feasibility study, 2016, I should say. But what's happened? And the first thing that's happened is the uranium price has changed. So you can look at the history of the deposit here. This was about when we discovered it. When I took over the company and it just listed, the market cap was about 12 million. During the 2007 boom, our first hole, the first hole that we ever drilled, hit uranium. Just about every hole we drilled after that hit uranium. We flew. We went from a market cap of maybe 14 million to a market cap of over 200 million. A share price of around 10 cents to a share price of over $2. It was fantastic, and everyone rang me up and said, "You're a genius." And then when the price collapsed, everyone said, "You're an idiot." But anyway, that's life as an MD, and you get used to that, okay? And then there was another boom in 2011, and this time we thought, this is the one. This is the one, and we're going to be able to develop this deposit. By then, we'd largely drilled it out. We knew that not all, but we knew that there was a big resource, and we knew that it was exciting. We were talking to KEPCO, we were talking to China Guangdong Nuclear, we were talking to Areva and Cameco. Dave Thomas from Cameco said it was the best small exploration team he'd seen in a junior company. So it was a really exciting time for me. And then, of course, a tidal wave in Japan killed the whole uranium business, and it's been defunct largely ever since. What has changed is late last year, the uranium price started to escalate. And that's on the basis of a recognition that uranium is crucial for base load power. Don't kid yourself with all this renewable stuff, right? It's fantastic. But when you live in Africa, you know the pain of flicking on the light switch and the lights don't come on. It's not something we experience in Australia, but it's coming unless we take some urgent action. Right? Now, I'm not here to advocate for Australian nuclear power, even though I'm a firm believer in that. I'm here to talk about this, but the uranium price has changed. So that's the big change. What else has changed? Okay. In 2010, I completed a study on radiometric sorting, which shows, don't worry about what that is, it shows that you can upgrade the ore significantly, about 2 times on average. It wasn't a big study, it was just a bit of test work. That study was never included in the feasibility. I don't know why I was gone, right? I was off doing other stuff. This is what sorting looks like. Sorting has exploded since then. And it's because you put all sorts of stuff in your recycling bin, right? And you don't sort it, you just chuck everything in there. And then it goes to the waste place and they sort it. Paper, plastic, the different sorts of plastic, the different metals. Computing power has increased exponentially. And this is an example of sorting. This is a conveyor belt. This is color sorting, all right? And you'll see the black bits getting ejected as they go off. That's a little blast of air, blows them off. And then they go into a different bin. So you're upgrading. In this is just an example. It's very mesmeric if you watch it for a while, right? If you've had a couple of beers, it's quite fascinating. So this is what we want to apply, right? So my goal now, I've just come back, I've only been back at the company a month, is to recruit a new team, build up the team again. I've just recruited a country manager, already my right-hand man, so it was easy. And we're going to do a whole bunch of testing, radiometric testing, gravity testing. Uranium's heavy, right? Duh. Really heavy. You can separate it out. Hyperspectral testing. There's some really excellent work being done in Brisbane for a company called Plot Logic, world leaders in hyperspectral stuff and sorting, not just sorting, but looking at as you mine. And we know that one of the issues from the feasibility study was that we had something else in the ore that was consuming a lot of acid. And we now know what that is, and who cares what it is? It's just a mineral. But we're going to get rid of that, and we think hyperspectral is the key. So that will lower our costs. So if all this, I'm going to collect a whole bunch of sample over the next couple of months. I'm going to do a whole bunch of test work on it. And that has potential benefits, an increase in grade. Even in the last, I've listened to 3 presentations in this conference. Everyone told me that grade is king. So an increase in grade is a good thing. Higher throughput, because we're getting rid of unmineralized material. Lower acid consumption if the hyperspectral stuff works. Less tailings, higher production, lower energy consumption. So I think that we can do much better than those numbers in the feasibility study, which is why I didn't dwell on them. Okay? And here's the process route. And really, again, it's just detail. Who cares? Here's what's important. This is the 2016 process route, and this is what you get. It's a giant heap leach. Leach pads, these are not them. Leach pads that are 3 kilometres long, 700 metres wide and 30 metres high. Like we're building mountains in Botswana. We're digging it up, moving it, putting acid on it, sucking out the water from the bottom with the uranium in it. It's a process, and it's really applicable to low-grade deposits. If the upgrading works, like I believe it will, like we've previously shown that it will, then we'll end up with this, tank leaching. We'll go from heap leaching to tank leaching. Lower cost, much better economically, much better in a whole bunch of ways. That is the holy grail for me. That's what I'm trying to achieve. Those results will come out. Just a little bit of marketing right at the end. Here's a bunch of other uranium companies. We're significantly undervalued compared to them. Similar size deposits, or actually they're a lot smaller than ours, similar grades. Our market cap, and this conference has been really successful because when I came to this conference 3 days ago, our share price was 5.5 cents. I think it's now 7 or 8. So we've had a great result here, and that's been good. So our market cap's probably a little bit higher than that, but still compared to our peers, really significantly undervalued. This is a personal journey for me and the company and the people that I employ. It's a project that I believe very passionately about. I'm glad to see you people here in the last talk of the day. I know that this has been a marathon and not a sprint. I hope that you will come and join me on my register and be part of this journey of something that I feel very passionately about, from one of the world's great uranium exploration players to one of the world's great uranium producers. You've all done a great job. End of the conference. Thank you very much.